everyone. Now we are going to listen to Luis Majano. He is the CEO of Ortis Solutions. You probably saw him outside in their nice stand. And when he's not doing whatever it is that CEOs do, he loves gardening. He can't right now due to his hand, but he does love it. So he's going to show us the power of decoupling content from presentation. So let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
And get the show on the road.
All right, well, welcome. I love this conference. This is the second time I'm here, and I'm really enjoying it. This session is discovering the power of a headless CMS. So that's what we're going to be covering for the next 30 minutes. Small introduction, my name is Luis. I'm a computer engineer by trade. I'm an author, CEO of Ortis Solutions. I was born in El Salvador, beautiful El Salvador in Latin America. I was imported into the US, so I'm an official gringo since 2009. And I am on loan to Spain right now, so I'm here in Malaga for the next few years. We'll see if I stay. That's a little bit of me. All right, so you'll see some typos in the presentation because I was trying to code with one hand. I was going to do some live coding, but no more. All right, so we'll start off with a question. What is a headless CMS? So just out of curiosity, how many of you are already using a headless CMS? All right. Who's never heard of a headless CMS? All right, good. Who's used a normal CMS? All right, good. So before, well, we need to find out what a normal CMS is. So we're going to start with what is a traditional CMS. So they've been around since the early 2000s, right? It's a pure content management system based on the web, usually built as a monolith, which includes the presentation layer. These can be skins, themes, or whatever the CMS calls itself, and usually an administrator. Okay, this is the back end, right, where the administrators, the publishers go, and they're actually doing their workflows, doing their content, managing their media, and everything is extremely tightly coupled, right? As you can see in the image here, I don't know, I'm trying to use my left hand to zoom, but I can't. But imagine it zooms. But they're both tightly coupled, right? It's a one-to-one reach. It's a monolith here that we're using. Okay? So that's kind of a traditional CMS, right? It's just everything bundled together. Now comes the era of headless CMS. So what is it? So a headless CMS is basically a separation of concerns. Instead of dealing with everything in one bundle, we're going to separate them, right? We're going to have an admin layer, which is now going to be referred to as, for example, a content repository, and a UI layer, okay? And this can be really any UI technology. And the glue here is an API, okay? And now we went from a one-to-one reach to a one-to-many reach. And the cool thing is now you have a choice. You can deploy these things together, or you can deploy them separately. So it's really, you are having now more choices if you're designing how to do your content, okay? So the forms of communication between these layers is very important. It's basically API calls, okay? Usually REST, sometimes GraphQL, or any other RESTful technology. But literally anybody or anything can be a client. You now really have the power to scale in that sense because now you have an API that oh, there, I can zoom a little bit. Yay. And you can have this API basically powering multiple clients at your disposal. And you have control to open and close those floodgates. So to start with the concepts, when you hear the word or the term body, right, we're going to be referring to, of course, where your content is stored and authored. This is your content store. Some CMSs are referring to the content stores, some CMSs don't. Obviously, there's thousands of CMSs out there. So this is the body. This is usually where you start. We then move to the head, okay? We're removing the head out of the CMS, and this is basically your visual presentation, okay? This is really, really where developers really get excited, right? They can make things happen really pretty. You can power a website, you can power mobile applications, you can power video channels, you can do all kinds of things, and you have the choice. You can use Vue.js, you can use CFML, you can use React, you can use Python, you can use whatever you want to build those UIs. So if we want to kind of compare, just a small comparison so you understand the differences, we start off with traditional CMS where a user basically, or an editor, or even a normal user, is going to have access to both the back end and the front end in one location. Okay? It's going to distribute down the pipe into all the different clients, but everything is monolithic. Okay? Everything is one place and it goes down the stream. If we move now to a headless CMS, okay, we're going to start off with an API, and this can be literally anywhere. Okay? That is your backend, it's access to your store, okay? And then from there, we can access many, many, many clients. Okay? As long as you give them access to your API, they can access your content. And that opens a lot of possibilities. That is the biggest difference. Those separation of concerns is really powerful. So let's review a few of these advantages. So eventually we can choose one, right? And actually try and implement this in our infrastructure. So first of all, content centralization is really, really important. That's the whole point. We want to centralize content. We want to reuse content. We want to have everything in one single place. And then we want to do omni-channel publishing, right? We want to go and stream all of our content wherever we can. And that provides a lot of scalability and performance because we can scale them differently. Our API and our backend can be deployed into Google Cloud, but maybe our different channels are deployed somewhere else. They can be geo-located, geo-distributed, right? So we have a lot more choices now than we had before. And another important one, me as being also a developer, is that developer flexibility is important, right? Maybe I want to try a new framework. Maybe I want to try a new UI thing, right? I have the freedom to do that because all I need to do is tap into an API. That's it. Also important, improved security. This one was key. We actually had built several CMS distributions for a government entity in the US, and security was paramount. So because we had the ability to separate them, the UI was on the web, and then the administrator was on a VPN. So there was really no way to hack it because there was no admin. There is no way to log in from the internet. So that improved security is important when you can separate and detach them and be able to access them separately. Okay? And last one that not a lot of CMSs do is to provide a native content store. Some CMSs basically just offer you the ability to tap into the blog or tap into pages, per se, through the API. But in all reality, when you deal with a headless CMS, you want the ability to do content store, right? Just the ability to define that content according to your concerns. So that's why the advantages of a headless CMS stem from a native content store. All right, so let's look at each of them so we can start having a little discussion on them. So content centralization and reuse is really important. It's really to provide that one way or that one system or workflow to manage your content. To reuse that content, right, obviously you can tap this into a CDN, you can put all your assets in one location, right? You can provide that consistency to your infrastructure and provide that focus. And usually what we found in big enterprises when we were consulting with them is there will always be these rogue WordPress sites everywhere, right? And we want to avoid that, right? We want to be able to offer the capability to deploy multiple websites within one infrastructure. That's the point, reusability, centralize, and reuse. The other one that I talked about is omni-channel publishing. And this is where really power can come. You really have freedom here to be able to create many different clients, right? So content can be delivered really to any platform or any device can make an API call, pretty much. But the important thing is you, as the content delivery author, can also control when that is published. You can control the expiration dates, you can control when that goes published, you can close the floodgates if you need to, right? You can monetize your content, right? You can do API throttling, right? You can do rate limiting, and you can provide different strategies and be able to even create an ecosystem for you to actually build an e-commerce platform if you wanted to, right? So you can target multiple devices, multiple websites, partners, mobile applications, you name it. This is the point, giving you this freedom to publish to any channel. All right, the next one is scalability, right? And this was really, really important because there are two concerns here. One is an administration concern, and another one is a consumption concern. And this is where you can really separate and perform them, right? So an administrator might just have a few load, from a few authors, right? So you can treat that separately. You can even deploy it to a separate, container, for example, and scale it differently. But then your UI, right, or your API module could be completely different. So that ability for you to this scalability and performance, right, now comes with this power by using a headless CMS, right? We can use geolocation if you actually need to distribute your content, for example, in North America, or you can distribute it here in Europe, you can do that. For example, we do the package manager for the language confusion in CFML, and we actually do that. We actually have different nodes in Amazon just for the US, actually, and then for South America, and then we do everything replicating and geo-distributed to Europe and Asia. So you have all these capabilities that you can do now that maybe it was a little bit harder before, okay? And of course, different caching strategies. You can tap into different caching mechanisms, caching engines, et cetera, and provide caching even at the different layers. The admin can have one cache strategy, right? And the UI can have different cache strategies. This one is obviously really important for us, especially at Ordes, where we develop a lot of tools. Everybody's either building a new framework or tapping into new things, and we wanted that freedom, right? And this gives you the ability to leverage really any front-end technology to deliver your content. Okay? You can try new things. You can do A/B testing with different type of content delivery platforms. You can try new technologies, right? You can integrate really content even with a database. We've done it with just from a database consuming from our API, from basically populating a database with content. So this has really increased our developer happiness and designer happiness, where they can basically have more freedom and test things out and enjoy basically tapping into the content. Improve security. This one is really, really important. Like I mentioned before, we had to deploy several of these instances to several government entities. Really, really important to be secure, of course. There are occasions where the UI can even be static. We've had use cases where from the CMS, we actually deploy the entire site basically to S3 as a static website. Really secure, nobody can attack it because there is no way to administer it, right? It's just deployed as a static site, okay? There is no admin to attack, no attack vectors in that sense. It's actually really, really interesting if you're checking your logs to see what paths people are trying, right, from WP-login, right? It's really, really crazy. But important to have that separation of concern so you can have different security concerns as well. You can have the administrator behind separate firewalls. You can have the administrator behind a VPN, right? So you have now the power to do that with a headless CMS. Really, really important. And the last one we talked about is the content store. So the content store is unique. Not a lot of CMSs offer a pure content store, but it's really to give you the ability to create content that's more than pages and more than blog. It's basically a structured content that can represent anything. This can be pages, it can be blogs, but it can also be movies, it could be events, it could be slides, it could be really literally anything, calendar of events, right? As long as you can address them via a unique slug, that's really important. We also found that having a hierarchy is important. Okay? Not only a flat content store where you just have a flat location where you can store things, but you can build them as a hierarchy, as a tree or a collection of nodes that you can even move around and decouple or change and actually address. So that's really important for a content store. Another one is to obviously attach metadata or custom fields. This is where somebody can actually design content, right, from nothing to provide fields like if you're designing a database. Okay? And of course, you have the different publishing capabilities, expiration capabilities, etc. So we found that when a headless CMS offers these capabilities, everything gets augmented because you have more choice and more freedom to build your content as you see fit. So I do have a secret, and it's not how I did this. Okay? But the secret is that this, oops, I missed it. This entire presentation is actually built with a headless CMS. So what you're seeing right now is a head. Okay? I built this in Vue.js, I could not finish it because I was typing with one hand, but the majority is there. Those are the links. And I wanted to show you how I put this together. So there's actually 3 repositories here. There's the headless core, which you can see at the beginning. That is our CMS that we use, and this is basically the backend, the body. Okay? This is the view head that you're seeing right now. All the slides, all the animations, everything is based on this little view application. And I've also built a Quasar application. So a Quasar application is basically a multi-channel framework, so you can actually build progressive web apps, desktop web applications, native Android, native iOS. And I also have that native Quasar application running here that I'll show you. And they're all talking to this CMS. Okay? So this entire presentation, we'll see how I put it together in the CMS. So for example, here's the Quasar application. So, debugging. Okay? This is the Quasar application. This is a progressive web app. And I can also deploy it as an Electron app on my desktop. I've kind of hacked in my credentials here, but it's a secure app. Okay? So I've actually produced an application with my CMS. And I can log in, and here is my home page that is bringing my content from my CMS. Those are little services, little pages that I built based. They look pretty ugly because I already had this. The only thing was the blog. I was able to at least do that, right? So I can represent my blog right here and read it, and I can represent my avatars from my content repository. Here's my user, and I can even sign them out. So we do this in a great way for an application that we're building for a time tracking application, because we just deploy it and all the content comes from the cloud. Okay? So here's the headless CMS, for example. Here are the pages that I was updating today before. And here's my content store. So here in my content store, you can see I have other presentations I've done, right? And this one is the Weiwei web presentation. So I can go into that hierarchy, and I can see all my slides right here. So I can basically order them as I want to present those slides, right? And if I want to go into a specific slide, for example, headless CMS, here is my title. There's my slug. You can see that slug will match what is on top of my URL. Okay? And I can see here my content. I'm in coder mode, right? But there's also a UI mode. But in here, I'm a coder mode. And you can see that this is actually in Markdown. So I have a choice to build my slide in Markdown or pure HTML or a mixture. Okay? As a developer, I'm mixing here, and I've created my H2, I've created my row, my columns, I've created basically my bullet points, I've added things from my media gallery that I have, right? And that's what basically brings in. So if I go to the secret page that I was showing you right now, I have a secret. Here it is. This is also in Markdown. Here it is. I have a secret to tell built with HCMS, and let's do a little nice ampersand then, right? So let's explore it, and we can add here, you will love it, right? And then I can come in here and say, okay, I want to publish this slide. Okay, I publish it, and I can go back in here and just refresh my slide, and now I have my changes right here deployed on my slide, right? So very easily, I was able to put this presentation together semantically. I don't have to worry so much about how my slides were going to look. I just wanted to focus on the content of my slides and use semantic HTML to represent it. And then the designer had a lot of fun basically thinking of how they were going to put it together, right? So that's just a little taste of what you can do with a headless CMS. And just last slide here. So how do you choose one? Obviously, I'm biased. We build one. But there are literally thousands of CMSs out there, from custom-made to really, really high enterprises building CMSs, all claiming to be the best. Some are not. Test them. Really see what fits your infrastructure, your developers. Try them out. Don't just go with one. Try them. Install them, right? See how easy it is to extend them. Look at their documentation, right? And all are really unique and have specific niches, right? And they have very key benefits. But I would suggest that you look at the benefits that we saw to try to compare them, right? Do they at least check those boxes, right? And remember about the content store. Having a hierarchical content store that you can change the way content is created is really, really important. So obviously I'm biased, I'm going to push for what we build, but go check them out, go look at what people have done, right? There's some amazing things. Some that are built more for publishers, some that are built more like for developers like ours, right? We are developers, so we focus more on developer experiences, right? And then let them build more solutions, but there's many, many, many out there. So that's what I would suggest. Right? But if not, I'll have access to, we added also right here on the bottom on a secret stash, we even added print mode to our headless CMS. So this is how we actually printed a PDF out of all our slides right here, right, that were built on the headless CMS. So we had a lot of fun building this little project, and it's open source. You can actually go clone it, touch it, do whatever you want with it, and commit back if you want, please. It'll be really important. And we actually have a lot of plans to actually do a little bit more of this because a lot of the folks in the team are using it for their own presentations. But if not, I know my time is limited, but maybe a little bit of questions, right? I have like 10 minutes or 7 minutes. Okay. Maybe some questions, curiosities, jokes, riddles. No? Maybe?